really cool.
Hello, welcome to episode 2 of Rosbifs Rugby. I'm Richard. Across the line is Robert. Congratulations on making it through the first podcast. We're very grateful for all of your listening in, your recommendations, your critiques, some positive, some slightly scathing. We can only endeavour to improve as the series goes on. Rob, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been looking forward to this all day. I kind of lost the ability to speak at various points today, which doesn't bode well for a podcast where I have to speak, but fingers crossed we'll be all right.
And how have you found it being 1 week into podcast stardom? We obviously had no technical issues, no upload issues, no publishing issues last week. So
I think as Steve Borthwick would not even almost definitely say, would definitely say, we're on a journey, and we're working hard every week to get better, and we'll take our learnings from last week, and the pair of us, we're on a journey, and we will improve. We ask people to stay with us, and we've just got to get better, and part of that journey it's very exciting.
What you're saying is, like the England team, it's going to take us 18 test matches and 2 seasons, or 18 episodes and 2 seasons, and then suddenly explode into life with 2 absolute barnstorming podcasts in maybe 18 months' time.
Episode 19, we've got episode 19 already booked. We've got Antoine Dupont and Charles Ollivon and Greg Aldrett ready to go. Lined
up, ready.
Yeah.
And episode 20...
Courtney Laws, if we can fit him in.
Episode 20, we've got Macron giving his view on French rugby structures.
We're playing Shag, Marry, Kill with Boujalal, Macron and Laporte.
And what was his name? Toulon? Or what is his name?
Boujalal.
That's Boujalal. I'm thinking Altrad at Montpellier.
Altrad, yeah.
We'll talk about the Rogue Owners derby in just a moment, because that really was an absolute pace thing. Before we get into the nitty gritty of the top 14, we were discussing just before this. So you were recently in Argennes. You were in Montauban to watch Montauban v Argennes local derby. Argennes. And you were with a friend of ours, Reese. You may be able to guess where Reese is from based on his name, Reese Jones, and discussing that Agen really fitted in with him as his team, as his French rugby team going forward.
Mainly because he's a Welsh fan. He's clinging on to former glories of the 70s and 80s, where Wales, or indeed Agen, played thrilling running rugby. They had some greats of the game. Philippe Sella had his whole career at Agen. They've had a few flair players in the past, like Rapeni Foul, and they've kind of fallen away, and there's a little bit of a basket case of a club right now, which we will come on to in our Petit-Fours at the end. But kind of from previous glories of one of the stellar teams in French rugby to kind of an also-rans, very much following the success path of Wales, I'd say, which is very like Reese. While we were discussing this, because we were actually during the Castres game, having watched the game the night before, became a diehard Agen fan overnight. We were saying how you are a Castres fan, although you just told me that perhaps you're not fully wedded to Castres. But I would say, if people are still getting to know us, Richard, so I thought a good way to help people get to know you is to kind of show or explain why Castres embodies you as a person. And so if they know Castres, they feel like they might know Richard Croney. And if they know Richard Croney, they might now feel like they know a bit of Castres. And I would say those characteristics that you and Castres share, I feel like this could, our friendship could go south very quickly here. Castres are the kind of humble achievers, the quiet achievers of the top 14. They are consistent and they are always one of the best teams, but they are never shouting about themselves, which is very like you, Richard. They are the they are the kind of rough around the edges, quite proud of the fact they aren't Toulouse. So they're not like the creme de la creme, fancy Dan's, global superstars. They're the kind of, we're kind of about the same level as you. We just don't need to shout about it. And we're a little bit hipster, which is also you, kind of rough around the edges and a bit hipster. But yeah, I'd say the kind of quiet overachievers, sometimes gritty and hardworking, sometimes unbelievably flair, is also quite Richard Croney.
And sometimes fall apart at the very end, as they did against Racing on Saturday, which we'll get onto in just a minute.
When it gets sloppy, I'm happy with that. It gets very sloppy.
Yeah,
I think it's probably appropriate for you and Castres.
That's a fair appraisal. Yeah, happy with that. I mean, my only reticence at supporting Castres is, so the first I have.
Your wife is a big fan as well. That's completely. I know that's completely.
Wife is a big Castres fan. A bit of context there. So the first game of top 14 rugby I went to was in 2012, and it was in Paris, and it was Stade Francais Castres, which was a draw. Castres, the away team. And I think they may have actually won the tournament that season. I think they won it in 2013. So that game,
13, yeah,
October. So little did I know at the time, but we were watching something very, very impressive coming together. But the second time I went was on a romantic getaway to Toulouse. Before I was really into French rugby, and we went along and saw Castres beat Toulouse at the Ernest Vallon. I think Gelanche was playing for Castres. I think Anton Dupont had just moved to Toulouse. They were fairly young, Colbys, Ramoses, Duponts, etc. And Benjamin Urdepageta inspired Castres in front of a very, very, and I mean like genuinely raucous away support, brought it home.
It is mental. Like they were the same. They were really raucous, even though they were getting pumped.
Yeah.
Game I went to watch, they were phenomenal all game. Like a pocket of the stadium, and they were the loudest bit by miles.
So yeah, I mean, I still enjoy it. I still enjoy watching Castres. I always keep a bit of an eye out for them. I like their slightly overachieving streak. I like their slight, I wouldn't go as far as to say money ball, but you know, we were talking about the Toulon, Montpellier big names last week. So yeah, the real test is I need to get to the Pierre Fab, which is great excuse for another trip. Rob, we would on that note.
Very
yourself.
Quickly, do you know who was in charge of Castres that year?
Urios?
No, Urios was the year.
That was the 2013.
The 2016 or 2018 when they won, that was Urios. Do you know who was in charge in 2013?
Oh God.
Current director of rugby in the top 14.
Who are the current directors of rugby? French, one assumes.
Quite a high profile one at the moment, or has been in the news during the Six Nations.
Not Mr. Clipboard Mignoni, surely not.
No, not your man Mignoni. Laurent Lebeat. So just another piece in the body of evidence that Laurent Lebeat is a really, really good coach, and they've replaced him in the French attack structure with someone who's not got that pedigree. But yeah.
And to reverse that, so your team, Rob, is I had assumed your top 4 team was Bayonne, but perhaps it's not. Would you care to talk me through your working?
So we went, it was one of our earlier trips, kind of thinking back, you challenged me to name the 19 grounds we'd watched French rugby at between us. And I think it was about number 4 and number 5 on that list were the Stade Jean Daugé in Bayonne and the Stade de Hameau in Pau, because we went for my 30th birthday a few years ago and we went to Bayonne in Pro de Deux on the Friday night, and then an hour on the train to Po on the Saturday. Couple of local derbies as they were, but Bayonne played Mont-de-Marsan, relatively local. Po played Biarritz. And so it was kind of between those two, because both games were like epic fan atmospheres, everything you wanted. The food was amazing. They kind of really confirmed our love of French rugby, I think, because it was one of those things where it felt like the whole town went. The après match was buzzing. It was proper live shows, bands, and food was epic. And when Bayonne got promoted, I had to choose. And I kind of stuck with Po. I think I don't quite know why I went for them over Bayonne. I think maybe because Po weren't very good last year and Bayonne were actually quite good with Camille Lopez. Oh God, but they've got Camille Lopez.
I think got Joe Simmons MBE.
They do have Joe Simmons MBE. But I think I think the fact that I woke up in Po on my 30th birthday, that's kind of where I was. It's kind of, that was the tying factor. And I just really enjoyed the Stade de Hameau. I thought it was amazing. And I just like the fact that they're really niche. I think like no one, they are probably the least well-known or the least high-profile team in the whole of the top 14, apart from maybe Oyonnax. But they're renowned for, because they're about to go down. Whereas Po, no one really talks about them, but they've had some genuine legends of the game play there as well, like Conrad Smith and Ben Smith as well, although perhaps not quite the legend of the game category. Sam Whitelock, obviously, at the moment. Stefan Armitage. I just loved it. I thought the ground was amazing, where it's kind of the three-sided, and you said it looks quite budget on TV, and I guess it does, but in the stand, you don't realise the bit that has no stand has a view of the Pyrenees, which is quite cool.
It is. I completely agree. It's I guess I've never been to the Aviva Stadium in Dublin, but similar, where you've got one end behind the post, which is essentially ground level. The Stade de Hameau is a beautiful stadium. Like really, it must be fairly new or done up recently. Like it's a pretty amazing facility. Great food. Very good stash. It's sold out of green and white striped buckets.
Yeah.
It's I can see where you're coming from.
I think the fact that it's also got that element of being out in the sticks, which is, we'll come on to our Pro de Deux team later, but just the fact that you have these towns seemingly in the middle of nowhere in France, of a population of 40,000, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more, and they've got 17,000 seats stadium where it feels like the whole town goes, and it's the full day out and community. It's just, I felt like that. I know Bayonne has the same thing, but it's not out in the sticks. Like Po does feel quite remote, and you've got those views. The whole town has views of the Pyrenees. It is quite a magical place.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's I feel like we maybe didn't quite do it justice and it was quite a fleeting visit, wasn't it, to Po, all told.
Well, speak for yourself, mate. You didn't go to the club that was playing.
No, I didn't.
Niche 80s tracks.
No, I decided to go and spend the evening in the flat that smelled of dead mice instead.
Yeah.
But no, very much. I would like to go back. It's great, really cool place. Brilliant, and they're playing some great rugby as well. Not with the exception, but you would have therefore been heartbroken, I'm sure, to see them not get the win at Clermont, which I think we highlighted as one that maybe feels like a missed opportunity for Po.
Yeah, it looks, from watching the highlights, it looks like a bit of a missed opportunity as well. I think it didn't look like Clermont played that well. Their tries weren't fantastic. It looked like a lot of their success came from just the big guys that you'd expect to be good, that have been good for ages, being good again. So Fritz Lee, Patheli Yato, George Mawala, like big old units just getting over the gain line, like 3 pick and go tries. There was a crossfield kick from Erdogetta, which wasn't that great, and Atasogbe just got himself in a right pickle completely, like just didn't see it, and then just didn't look interested in tackling Gironde when he did catch it. They didn't look great, to be honest. Poe looked like Poe. They came out the blocks. Joe Simmons MBE was like flinging it wide. The guys that scored tries were the guys that I love watching, like Gaetan, Atisogbe, Eziala as well, the other winger, Spanish. 2 interceptions. Like Clermont weren't good in attack. They've given away 2 interceptions. I don't think it. I think it possibly consigns Poe to mid-table mediocrity again, rather than. I think they needed to win that if they were going to have a good chance of the barrage. Clermont, I don't think it means they're out of the woods either, because they've ultimately beaten a team who they probably match up pretty well against, because if there's one weakness Poe have, it does seem to be against kind of the big physical teams, and they're not very good away from home. So Clermont, from that, should have been expecting to win it, even though they're in a bad run of form. So that, I don't think they're out of the woods in terms of their big run of form.
Feels a fair summation. Going back to the top, probably worth a couple of minutes. Did you watch Bordeaux v Toulouse on Sunday night?
I did, yes.
It was bloody great.
It was bloody great. And the atmosphere, I think it was one of those, you don't really get it that often in rugby, if we're honest, but that proper, you notice it for the Penaud try and at the end of the game, like that proper like roar from the crowd you get from like back when you used to watch like Serie A in the 90s, like that proper, like just the whole crowd erupting. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was the atmosphere was incredible. Well, from what you get through the TV. The Matmut Atlantique, we went last year to watch Exeter La Rochelle, obviously a fairly vociferous support group for Stade Rochelet, with a I think the capacity of the Marcel de Flon's about 15,000, is it? So everyone who's been in the queue for a ticket for the last 2 seasons managed to get themselves down to Bordeaux, and it was quite. Yeah, I mean, I can only assume like the Bordeaux game was quite amazing.
40,000 out of the 44,000 were La Rochelle fans or something like that last year.
And does really have that feel of a ground that, whether it's deliberate, whether it's just happens to be like that, but where the atmosphere really sits and kind of lingers in the stadium. The game itself was, I thought, it was completely breathless.
Thought Jalabert looked a bit rusty. Not. He looked unbelievable, and then he got injured again.
It was very Gareth Keenan from The Office. That knot just there. Yeah,
I think I'd take Gareth Keenan rather than Borat. I think that was probably
yeah. He looks right. I think. I mean, that knock. I'm surprised. I was really surprised to see him playing. The initial report, maybe I was just miles out of the loop, but the initial report I read was that they thought the Saracens game was going to be the first one back. But yeah, I mean, he slotted back in pretty well there. I mean, they kind of, to an extent, ran away with it a little bit in the first half, and probably should have had the penalty try for was it Cost? Is it Costes?
Oh, playing a bit of volleyball,
playing a bit of volleyball.
That was like a red card almost. I think Andrew Merton's actually called for a red card.
Can you get a red card for deliberate? I'm quite amazed. I don't think Penaud's getting stopped from 30 yards out.
No.
Yeah, that was awesome. So first half, Bordeaux cut out the block, score in the first minute. Murfana in the corner. Maxime, the man Luku, who did have a few wobbly moments, but a beautiful kick that was then matched by Penaud sort of grubbering through, which in normal time looked pretty regulation, but he doesn't break stride. It's ridiculous.
I think that like grubber / volley / whatever you're calling it from Penaud, just like fully summed up. It encapsulates Damien Penaud for me. It's kind of, it looks so clueless and so like, oh, just try that, like, you know, like a kid like mucking around, like doesn't have a clue what he's doing. And then you also at the same time watch it and you're like, that is perfection. No other player on the planet could do that. it's like that weird dichotomy within him that's kind of, is it intentional? Is it just some bloke just being a bit wild and having a go, and yet it comes out to be perfectly executed? He's just a baffling player. But if you watch the replay, it's like the perfect connection of like a volley grubber. It's phenomenal.
He then, for the I think it was the final try in the first half, the Buros try, where they just go steaming in off the, some of their first phase attacks were pretty frightening. You know, the ease with which they were ripping Toulouse apart. But I think it was Pinot was first receiver off the back of the scrum, Luku on the loop, little pop, but rather than popping it up, Pinot just basically drops it on the floor. And Luku, to be fair to him, and I did have my my Maxime tinted glasses on, but he does brilliantly to scoop it up, and
it's a hell of an effort.
And Buros flies in, and then second half, sort of
Shane
lesser known.
Off injured, I think.
Yeah, it was, but it did make way for lesser known sevens player coming on at 10. Not Tony D, the Minehead stripper, Antoine Dupont was on, and kind of run out of superlatives, don't you? Like, the guy's it's just a bit of a joke now.
I'm quite, as you well know, Richard, I'm quite a contrarian and quite a cynical person, and if anyone gets a lot of praise, I'm more than willing to find a flaw and shoot down. And I never really liked Lionel Messi, for example. It was too much praise all at the same time for years and years and years, and I just found it too much. I saw him in one game, he walked all game, he was rubbish. Dupont, when he first came on, I was like, nah, Aaron Smith's way better, can't be as good. And now it's just gone so far beyond that. Like, I just you cannot not praise him. It's just like what he's doing is, I can't give it enough praise. He's doing everything. There was one bit where he kind of fends off, so should he get tackled out the ruck, fends someone off, gives an offload. Like, there's nothing he can't do. He looked unbelievably strong. He looked unbelievably quick. He was the one still going at the end, having played 77 million minutes.
A lot of guys looked hooked out there, didn't they?
And he's flying around still, like final minute. And then you think of his kicking and his skill set, the little switch and flick inside for LaBelle, and I just cannot get my head around how good he is.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I think he might be fake. I think lab created.
Glitch in the Matrix. Yeah, he was phenomenal, and he made some mistakes as well. He had one out on the full. He lost out on a couple of high balls and things like that. But it's just he's having so many involvements in that game. His first game of 15 for however long, probably expecting to maybe play like half an hour off the bench. But there was a 10-minute period, as you say, where I think he picks up the ball. It's in the opposition 22, but he arcs round. The pace is frightening on the loop, not the loop, on the switch to LaBelle. LaBelle, who also second half was a real handful.
He's an athlete, isn't he?
He went smashing through in the 13 channel, albeit I think maybe over what's his name? Who came on? Was it Garcia? Who came on for? Came on for Jalibert. Smashed through him, and then about 5 minutes later makes the full sort of open field break. It's just everything. It was brilliant, and in a game where there were bits where it was a little bit fast and loose, but some of the individual performances, I thought Castres for Toulouse was brilliant. I thought Jack Willis had a wicked game, apart from the volleyball. It was pretty phenomenal. I thought Uberti for Bordeaux coming in late was awesome. Pinot, obviously. Big Ben found himself at 13.
Uberti's been on the short list of top 3 players for player of the weekend, which I found slightly surprising. It was him, Tatafu, as in the Bordeaux Tatafu, who was unbelievable, but the Bayonne Tatafu was also very good. And I can't remember who the other one was now. Duncan Payala, who was very good for Toulon. But I thought Bertie was brilliant, given he was a late call-up. I don't think he was the best player on the pitch.
No. Well, I think it was pretty clear.
Best-looking bald man in the world, Maxime Lucci.
It was.
I tell you who I thought. I don't know if you know. I knew nothing about this bloke, and turns out he's played quite a bit, but he's still quite young. Is Boscheton, the 6 for Bordeaux?
He was brilliant.
He was. He was actually
not just the
a
finish
couple of like key turnovers. Couple of really key turnovers for like 2 of the tries. He was their main line-out jumper all game. Made some seriously big hits, like just properly like what you want from a 6, like put himself about. 22, he looks like a barman. Like he definitely, like if I walked into a pub in South London and saw him behind the bar, albeit scrum cap off, you'd hope, I wouldn't be surprised. He definitely loves a dart. Like there is no way he's not a smoker, but hell of an engine on him all the same.
Member of Club Esperanza between the hours of 11 and 4 a.m. But look, what a game. Bordeaux, obviously. I mean, Bordeaux, how far they'll get in Europe, top 14, I don't know, but they're cracking that kind of big 2, aren't they, of La Rochelle, if they haven't already done so. It was awesome to watch. Well, maybe I think
the main thing for that is just the attacking play was brilliant, but some of the defence from Bordeaux second half was just phenomenal. Because they lost at that point. They've lost Jalibert, and Garcia was good when he came on, but they've kind of lost, and they've lost all territory. Toulouse have brought on a bench of Bai, Cross, Miafu, Aldeghiri, which is just joke levels of a bench. Yeah, weight, and it was kind of all Toulouse for a lot of that, but to have that defence. Both teams defended brilliantly, which is ridiculous given there was 9 tries scored in the game. I think that defence suggests to me that Bordeaux are going to be a force to be reckoned with in Europe and certainly in the playoffs in the top 14. It's interesting because Sarries are obviously brilliant this weekend, so that'll be a hell of a game. But it kind of having watched that game on Saturday, I was like, Saracens might do Bordeaux away, and then you see their defence against Toulouse, who are probably the best attacking team in Europe, and they held up pretty well.
Yeah, they did. And as you say, the sort of levels of physicality you have to deal with. I thought it was summed up very nicely. I can't remember the name of the Bordeaux replacement tight head Georgian fella who absolutely hammered Miafu on the the kind of left-hand touchline. Serious hit on a very big man. But yeah, what a game.
Big Ben's replacement, Taufa, I think might be bigger than Big Ben.
He's huge.
I think Big Ben's looking lean. He's looking lean and fit.
Well, he kept finding himself in the outside channels, like going through the hands, which I really enjoyed. He gets through some work as well, doesn't he? He's not. They
should have had him kicking sticks as well. He's on his Instagram. He's slotting them from the sideline. Maxime Lucci 0 from 3 in the first half. I think give it to Big Ben.
That would have been such a nice touch, wouldn't it? Right, let's race through the rest because we could spend forever talking about that game. Stade v Lyon kind of went to form as expected, although maybe not quite such a gap. Did you watch Montpellier Toulon? Sounded like a real old school beatdown.
And Montpellier were dreadful. They were really bad. I thought it was worse I've seen Reinach play ever, I think. Sam Simmons was good. He was really good, actually. And Ben Lamb was quite good, someone who I think has been a bit disappointing in a lot of French games. But, Toulon, their pack is, you know how I was saying last week, like sometimes they're brilliant, sometimes they're not. Their forwards just carried so powerfully, like Ribbons, Aloanisi, Cornel Dupré. Like, what a forgotten name that is. Olivon looked physical. Like, Olivon looked properly physical. The line out still wasn't great. And I've got an interesting thing on this. Do you know? Okay, so Jack Singleton came on around like 60-minute mark. He was brought off. He missed one line out by miles. And I'm not trying to pick on Jack Singleton. They weren't that great with Bobigny, who's club captain, although they were better. Jack Singleton lasted 12, 13 minutes. Do you know who came on for him to play hooker?
Was it not a hooker?
it was not a hooker, and they are English.
Kieran Brooks.
Correct. And he threw at the line out as well.
Did he? Wow.
Yeah.
He's leaving next year, isn't he? Is he off somewhere else, Kieran Brooks?
Possibly, yeah.
He might be.
Maybe Sinclair.
Yeah.
He might have gained himself a contract because it looks like he's doing a better job at hooker than they also with him at hooker destroyed a couple of scrums, as you would imagine they might.
Yeah. Fair. Well, that was a hammering.
Yeah. Jaminet looked great. Villiers looked great. Baptiste Ferrand came back.
Nice.
Came on quite early for Ben White. Ben White went off first half with an injury. Ferrand looked great. He looked really good. In the same way that, Jalibert come back from injury, looked great. You don't expect that much people to be that good coming back from injury. Did you watch?
Good he's back.
Did you watch Castres v Racing?
I saw a few bits. I saw one slightly forgotten man of English rugby. I saw a brilliant try by Christian Wade for Racing. Unbelievable finish. I did also see that Castres managed to play pretty much the last 10 minutes with a 2-man advantage, miss 2 kicks at goal, and then lose the match with near enough the last kick of the game. Yeah.
This game had everything. I almost had to watch the highlights again just to process it. So they had the ref, I can't remember his first name, but Trinini. He's
the guy who wears the guy who sometimes wears the walking boots.
Yeah,
when he's refereeing. Yeah,
he's had a couple of odd games in the Champions Cup. He had a great time. 6 yellow cards in the game in total. 1 for Tyler Ardron. I genuinely think he took someone's head off. I don't know how it wasn't a red. You had the Wade try, which was a joke. Naituvi, the other winger for Racing, scored from a break that started on their own 5-metre line. We had a fight or a scrap, as they are these days, between Kamil Shat and Levan Chilichava, which must be the only time Kamil Shat has got into a fight with someone with a bigger neck than him. They both went to the bin for that. The flyout went to the bin for cynical play. As you said, so they had 7 in the scrum for 1 scrum. Chilichava was back, and they walked properly old school, under 13s, walked them back over the line. And therefore Racing lost another prop to the bin. Racing are down to 13. Castres then scored a try from a line out, which started on the full 22-metre driving maul. There was a try-saving tackle from Henry Arundel. And then, as you said, to cap it off, we had a kick from Legarec to get them ahead, as well as a missed conversion would have kept Castres on 23 points. And then Popolan missed again with a minute or so left. It looks like it had absolutely everything. And I think Racing quite lucky to get away with it.
Castres, what can you say? Even when they're not on form, they're the ones to be around. What can I say?
Yeah.
Oyonnax Perpignan.
All I've seen in this game is
on paper.
All I've seen in this game is Ali Crosdale's try, which was very good.
Absolutely outstanding. Yeah, it looked. I was only able to catch a few highlights. It looked pretty attritional, quite cagey. The Crosdale try was outstanding. In a pick of some pretty good ones this weekend. You would assume that probably consigns Oyonnax to Pro League Rugby next year.
It's a long way back, isn't it? Now they are 11 points adrift of Montpellier, 12 adrift of Lyon. That's 3 wins, at least. Probably no, it's 3 wins with bonus points, kind of either way. They're not making up 3 wins on Montpellier.
You can't really see where in that squad. Albeit, I mean, they haven't been miles off for a lot of the season, have they? But you can't really see where that kind of, because it is going to have to be a huge change in fortune now, where that's going to come from that side.
Well, also their last 4 fixtures. I was just looking back, but I thought, their last 4 fixtures working back are Perpignan, Clermont, Montpellier, Lyon. So they have just played the 4 teams directly above them and got a draw from those fixtures. So it's just, they've got to play everyone else now for the rest. I just can't,
Writing's probably on the wall, but they'll bounce back, I'm sure. Perpignan looking, I mean, say this is pretty attritional, Crossdale magic, but they've had their moments, haven't they, this year? They've looked like they're a proper side. For one of the teams that do, I think it's fairly well known, they definitely do have one of the lower budgets, and that's reflected, I guess, in their position. But they've taken some proper scouts this year.
They've also been 13th the last 2 years and came up from Pro League the year before that. So yeah, they are kind of the weakest other team consistently over the last few years, but they're doing pretty well. They might not finish the team this year.
Question for you. One, it'd be great if they stay up, very much on the list of places to visit, as I think you were mentioning last week.
I might try and sneak that in this year, We can talk about it after.
Interesting. Their kit, Perpignan, is the blue kit now their home strip, the sort of baby blue with a few like red and yellow details? Because I was watching the highlights of this game, and away from home they were wearing the full kind of orangey
Catalan.
Red and yellow Catalan colours, and it's such a good bit of kit. It looks class, and I feel like I don't see them wearing it enough. Maybe I've just picked and chosen the wrong matches for aesthetically pleasing stash.
I think you might be right. I think also the light blue, I think, is actually relatively traditional. I don't think that's a kind of a modern take. I think I've seen something that it's part of, like, if you look at like the badge, or like, I don't know, I've seen a logo somewhere that kind of makes it look like the light blue is quite a big part of the club motif. Well, I quite like the light blue with the light blue with the Catalan socks. Is quite
nice. It is nice. There's just something in that layeriness, almost something a bit rugby league about the full colours that I do like. You might be right. I think they've had some pretty good kits over the years. I'm fairly sure the first ever game I went to at university at Sandy Park was Exeter Perpignan, and I'm pretty sure James Hook and Robbins Charlie Watchu were decked out in, I feel like it was almost like a Harlequin type design.
I was going to say, it was full colours. Court jester, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beaut. Like that could be a real rabbit hole.
That I couldn't get my head around this weekend was the Bordeaux one. And I just, part of me thinks it's stunning. Part of me thinks it's not stunning, and I can't work out why. I really like the kind of white with maroon, not quite full hoops, but kind of Jean-Paul Gaultier kind of horizontal stripes. I think maybe they've just got too many sponsors, but then lots of the other kits have got a lot of sponsors on, and they don't look average. I don't know. I think the Bordeaux kit has potential, is what I'm saying.
Talking of great kit, because a man who I've seen firsthand lose his mind and his credit rating in their club shop, Bayonne kept up their impeccable record over 800 days apparently at the Stade Jean Daugé.
So we weren't at the previous defeat.
Probably
the previous
not,
defeat but it was like January, so we missed it by a month. They lost to Grenoble in January 2022, and we were then November 2021. So we weren't far.
Got you. But Bayonne were within an inch or two. Antoine Astoy hit the woodwork in the 78th minute, I think, for La Rochelle, albeit not a gimme, but very, very kickable. La Rochelle showing a few signs of improvement.
There's absolutely no way Bayonne should have won that game. I can't remember seeing a more dominant performance. Maybe Ireland, Italy in the Six Nations. I think I actually looked up the stats afterwards. I think La Rochelle had 65% territory second half and similar levels of possession. they had so many penalties and just refused to kick the points and then they kept cocking up their line out. Like Tolu Latu was just dreadful, like properly bad, like not straight, not even getting it above head height sort of thing. Like Bayern's last points in that game were in the 44th minute. And
they were 13-0 up at half time. Is that right?
They were 13-0 up after 44 minutes, and it finished 13-12. And La Rochelle just refused to kick the points, and they just kept going to line out. Although, given how Hastoy kicked, maybe that was the reason. But they were just completely dominant, and just for whatever reason, just couldn't. Like, were just incapable of scoring.
Bayern possibly got away with one. The intangibles of the Stade Jean Daugé and their kind of fortress-like setup there.
We did have another thing that we loved. A lot of, although not a French coach, we had a lot of Rona Agara just shouting "Allez" on the sideline.
Oh, excellent!
A lot of Brice, Allez, that sort of thing.
Fabulous. Good to see. We didn't discuss it, but I was the mind did wonder as to what Pierre Mignoni had on his clipboard this week to inspire.
It's the clipboard that makes it.
The 50-point victory. Yeah, it's something else.
Other than everything that, he's quite similar to like all other top 14 coaches. It's just the clipboard. Like, it's just something about it. And it's like, it's so tightly clutched. I do like how on the commentary you can hear them on the sideline.
Just screaming at his pre-written notes on his clipboard. Look, it was a pretty good round, the top 14, few surprises, some ridiculous tries, couple of pace things, sort of everything you want really. We'll maybe keep our powder dry on previews for this weekend. And
we've got bigger and better things.
We have got bigger and better things. We'll come on to those in just a second. Rob, it's time. The diehards who have found this podcast, that they're going to be here for one thing this week, and it's is it the scandal or the salacious tale, or is it your run through of Pro D2 as we reach the business end?
It's both, because they go hand in hand. Pro D2 is the Wild West of European rugby. It is everything you want and expect from French rugby in terms of passion, supporters, community, fights, jouet, big scrums, scandal off the field, interfering presidents. It's got everything, absolutely everything you want. And to celebrate, I'm wearing a Grenoble jumper and a Sax V hat, because I can't. I'm glad it's back.
Sorry, while you were doing that, I was just thinking about how I knew I first enjoyed and was into Pro D2 rugby, and I can't remember the name of the guy who did it. I'm pretty sure he was playing for Nevers.
Playing for Nevers, yeah.
And it was when, after the final whistle blew, he did a little dance behind the referee, lifted him to the sky like Simba in The Lion King, and promptly got a red card after the final whistle. And I think at that point, I thought, this is
Josiah
Raisuk. That's it. What a league. Some big, and look, some big names, some names from the past. But we are properly. It's a proper marathon of a season, and we are starting to creep towards the business end of it. What's your view on the state of play? Because it's very, very tight. Both ends.
They have had 3 weeks off, which seems staggering when you think that the top 14 has only had one, and there are 16 teams at Pro D2, so there's more teams they've got to fit fixtures in for. I guess they don't have the European breaks.
They played through the World Cup as well, I think,
and they played through the World Cup, yeah, which they organised on Tuesday nights, which I really rate, so that the fans weren't kind of double booked for France v Uruguay or New Zealand versus Namibia or whoever was kind of in those kind of slightly back end of midweek games. It's been it's been a really interesting season so far. It's kind of just starting to kind of get into kind of tiers within the league, I'd say. I think the top three, Van, Bezier and Provence, so they're on 67, 67 and 66 points. They've kind of been the top three all season. And actually they have started to stutter a bit, but they've kind of been the top three. And I think realistically, those are the three teams competing for the top two home semi-finals. Mont-de-Marsan and Nevers are both on 61. So they are technically only 5 points or 6 points off second, but they've kind of also been fourth and fifth throughout. And they kind of are fourth or fifth every year. They're kind of the there or thereabouts team every year. You've then got another 5 points back to Brive, and it's the sixth place that's the real scrap. In the same way, in the top 14, that final place of the barrage is going to be a scrap. It's going to be even bigger. I reckon it goes down to 11th in Pro D2. So Brive are on 56 points. You've then got Dax 55, Colomiers 55, Grenoble 52, Aurillac 51, Agen 51. Then you've got a gap to the bottom five teams who are trying not to be in the bottom two. The bottom two go down. There's no playoff with National. They go down regardless. You've got Biarritz, the once great club, on 43. Valence Romans, who came up last year, on 43. Soya Angoulême, 43. Montauban, 40. And Rouen on 34. So Rouen not quite as down and out as Oyonnax are in the top 14. And actually, they're just picking up wins. They've not been dreadful all year. Like, they have picked up wins relatively consistently. Obviously just not as many as some of the other teams, but they've not been proper basement trash sort of thing. And that, I genuinely think, with the kind of results that Montauban have had over the last few weeks, and the fact that Biarritz, Valence and Angoulême kind of keep losing and winning in equal measure, they're just matching each other week on week, or kind of 1 week one team wins and the next week another team wins. The fact that keeps happening, if Rouen just keep picking up wins, I think they will stay in touch. I think that's absolutely fascinating. The financial implication of dropping down is huge in Pro D2, because you have fully televised games. So there's a Thursday night game, and then Friday evening is devoted to Pro D2. There's no top 14, there's no other stuff. All games televised, or all on Rugby Plus, so it's kind of simulcast with the tribes coming in. Whereas you don't have that in National. You've still got all of the travel, all the kind of getting from one end of the country to the other, which is what did for Blognac. But you're not getting the sponsorship exposure through TV. You're not getting the commercial. And where, certainly, as we happened with Blognac, they're basically a suburb of a big town of Toulouse, and you've got other competing teams there in Colomiers and Toulouse. They're hoovering up all the sponsorship money. And so if in National you're just not getting that sponsorship money, and you're not getting the commercial TV deal. So it's a big thing. Biarritz are currently on sale for €1, just so that someone can take them off their hands and get the debts. Apparently the guys involved in that were also sniffing around Agen last year. I think that's kind of a classic Wild West owners.
An interesting syndicate.
Yeah, sort of thing. The middle section, Brive really are in sixth, and despite only being 5 points ahead of Agen, that's going to be a scrap. I think Brive are the team that should be there. They came down from top 14 last year. They've got big investment. He's actually an English guy, Ian Osborne, but we know they've got big investment because we know they've got Courtney Laws going next year.
Yeah.
They've already got Ross Moriarty there. They've got Marcel van der Merwe. They've got the starting 9, 10 and 15 from the France under-20s. So it's kind of working both ways there. They've been a top 14 team fairly consistently. They've won Europe, Brive. Am I correct? Yeah.
I think they won the second.
Yeah.
Was it second ever Champions
97,
Cup? Yeah, massive club.
I think Alan Penno was fly half for Brive in that year.
Yeah,
don't quite know on that.
I think you might be right. I mean, they are, you talk about these sort of Bayonnes and the kind of fervent, fairly small towns that have these huge followings. Brive very much fit that bill. I did notice the other day there are actually a limited number of direct flights to Brive from Stansted kicking about. So if anyone fancies a little because that's getting pretty in some pretty remote parts of France, kind of down in the Dordogne, I think. So yeah, options to visit. What fixtures take your fancy this weekend? I mean, it's always, given the nature of the season, it's usually a brave man who punts against the home team. But there's 6 matches left. Feels pretty shootout-y now. So I wonder if we'll start to see that change slightly.
Yeah,
particularly after a 3-week break as well.
We'll do another a Pro D2 equivalent of what we did for the top 14, where we'll stick up our predictions and we'll put the French lazy assumption generator into action again. Perfect. And see how the home wins only theory comes out at the end of the season. But I would say it's probably closer for Pro D2 than it is for the top 14. Some teams like Aurillac, and there's another one. Agen got their first win away at Montauban, that game we were at. Aurillac haven't won all year, and neither have Valence. And I think there's someone else as well that haven't won all year away from home. The games that catch my eye this week, Mont-de-Marsan beat Brive on Thursday night. So Mont-de-Marsan are challenging for that top 3. They're going pretty well. Brive away haven't been great. And if they lose that, then they'll probably drop out of 6th place. I would say Montauban at home to Dax is big. Montauban haven't won all year, I think, which is quite staggering, really. So they've not won in 2024. 1 win in 8 in 2024, which is, they are now struggling. They were doing fine a few weeks ago. And now they're actually kind of 3 points adrift of the 14th place. Dax are a team that should be beatable. And I think those are the main ones. Those are the main couple, I think. Agen have got Rouen at home, and Agen should really be targeting that. That could jump them up into contention again. Talking once great clubs, Agen, 4th most successful team in the top 14 history after Toulouse, Stade Francais and Béziers. In terms of top 14 wins. So they are kind of another once great club, as I mentioned earlier, Philippe Sella, Repeni Falthau, all that jazz. They should be looking upwards. There's a bit of stuff going on, I think, at Agen as well. Grenoble are an interesting team because it's quite hard to read where they're at because of their points deduction. So they very nearly got expelled from the league last year, didn't they? And they had 8 points deducted.
Yeah. Which was that reduced, or did it start more than that? I think it was reduced, wasn't it? I think it was 10, maybe down to 8.
So they are technically in 9th on 52, but you think, are they actually the quality of like a 5th place team because of that points reduction? And they've picked up wins away. They also beat Van recently, which is pretty good. Van were flying at the start, then had a dip, then looked like they were flying again, have dipped again. But I think that top 3 race is really interesting. I personally would like to see Béziers come back up. I think they are, as we said last week, they are the 3rd most successful team in the history of French rugby in terms of top 14 titles, huge in 60s and 70s. They've got an awesome looking stadium. It's down in the Mediterranean. I wonder whether they would struggle in the top 14 because a lot of their stars are Portuguese stars and some of them are aging. In fact, when I look at the teams coming up, the ones that I think wouldn't struggle as much would be Brive, ironically, who aren't even who are sick. Yeah. And because of, they're getting Courtney Laws in, they've got a lot of cash behind them. Similarly, Provence have got a lot of cash. I got a little story on Provence and the players they're bringing in next year. But, they've got Thomas Francis, who is a good international level tight head. They've got Tamama Harrison, Jimmy Gopper's doing the strip. Inga Finau as well
coming in,
if
they get there.
So those Van have been the best team this year, and they play some great rugby, and their stadium looks cool, and they sell it out every week by the looks of things. So I think Béziers are the one I want to come up, but I don't really know out of the other 2, or I can't see a team in the playoff beating the likes of a Perpignan, Montpellier, Lyon, Clermont, those teams are just so much stronger, I think.
Perpignan, I don't know. They got past Grenoble reasonably comfortably, and that playoff game is at the ground of the Pro D2 Challenger, isn't it? Yeah, which adds a little bit of jeopardy. The bit we've really been waiting for, what is the scandal? Or do we save that for
we'll save that for the Petit-Fours, but a couple of other things on the Pro D2. I want to shout out a couple of players. So Christian Ambariang on the wing for Nevers is absolutely dynamite. I think he's going to Castres possibly next season, or he's going somewhere in top 14 maybe. The other player is Jope Nicera on the wing for Dax. I think he's 21. This guy is the next Repenny Falfau. You heard it here first. He is electric. He's GIF, which helps, but he's Fijian, and he is dynamite. Like he is Repenny Falfau. He's absolutely rapid, low centre of gravity, powerful. I want to see him at a big top 14 club. I want to see him tearing up Champions Cup. Those are the players that I want to see more of.
You heard it here first.
And also the hat that I'm currently wearing. So we started the podcast talking about our kind of top 14 teams. We very much, amongst us, we kind of have a bit of a shared love in the top 14 of Bayonne, that if we had to pick a side to share, we would probably choose Bayonne, I think. But we only have one club in Pro D2, don't we, Richard?
Sax V, as Liberty X famously said.
Everything about you, so Sax V. Soya Angoulême. Soya Angoulême Charente 15, as their full name. Why are they our club, Richard?
Brilliant stadium with very, very, what's the word? Liberal use of confirmed attendances. When we went on a Friday evening, they were playing Mont-de-Marsan, weren't they? The ground's fantastic, really small. I think from a few of the Pro D2 games been to, it's probably the only one that's really had that feel of a little bit, I guess, like lower league English football, like sort of real fervent atmosphere, slightly smaller grounds. You know, a lot of these teams have maybe fallen away slightly, and they sit in massive stadiums with, you know, not small attendances but modest attendances in big grounds. I think of Grenoble and Biarritz at the Aguilera, absolutely heaving. I think the official attendance was about 4,000 people, and I can tell you for free there were at least double that there. You basically couldn't move. They also the delicacy is merguez sausages served alongside a little pichet, and they also have the Sax V snail, the escargot, as their mascot, who charges around. It's just a fantastic place to watch rugby. Great little town. Not much more to be said, really.
We've also plumped for Sax V despite A, missing the kickoff, B, missing the whole of the first half by being in a queue for tokens, where some old biddies were counting out tokens one by one, and then ran out of tokens. I think that's the biggest test of patience I've ever had. We also couldn't park near the ground. I think that kind of sums it up. Like it was before we went to the La Rochelle Chiefs semi-final, so we flew in and out of Bordeaux. We did a 2-hour drive to Angoulême through some horrific traffic. Thought, oh, this is just a kind of outpost. It is. It's a town in the middle of nowhere, really, in the Cognac region. And rocking up to ground, it felt like the whole town was there. You couldn't park for about half a mile from the stadium because it was just everyone was there. And then when we got to the ground, as you said, Richard, there was no way there was 4,000, 5,000, whatever it was claiming to be in that stadium. It was crazy. Great kit as well, purple, very underrated, underused kit colour.
Yeah, fantastic place, definitely worth a visit. And you can actually, I think, if you're staying in the centre of Bordeaux, you can get a TGV to Angoulême in about half an hour. So very, very much worth it. Lovely little market as well the next morning, and the home of the comic book or the comic strip.
Home of the comic, yeah. And there's a comic strip convention there every year.
There is. There you go. So we'll be, as ever, keeping an eye out for them.
Also, where the Wes Anderson film, The French Dispatch, is filmed as a kind of quintessential French town.
And as a final thing, trout and salmon farming, we found out last week through some very left
some random Frode social
propaganda.
Media. Yeah.
Right. Is that a wrap on Prody? Move on to
who's coming up, who's going down, or who's coming up, who's going to go down?
Who's coming up? I think Van are going up.
You think they'll get the automatic place?
Yes.
I think you're right, yeah.
I think Rouen are going down with Valence Romans, I think.
Ooh.
Having not won away at all, I think you're going to have to win one of those to stand a chance. And I think, Biarritz have been dreadful given the guys they brought in, but a little bit too much quality, possibly Montauban, although Montauban have really got into reverse. So, but yeah, gun to head, Valence. And
I don't think it's Biarritz. Hawass, as much as he's a terrible bloke, is playing some great rugby. Jonathan Joseph is back fit. That alone should be enough at that sort of level of the league.
I think so.
I think Montauban are in free fall. I loved my time at Stade Sapiac. It was so cool, and the food's great. But one win in 8 this year is just not good signs. Maybe 3 weeks off. Who knows how teams will come out? We don't know. But I think they need to win that game that against Dax at home this week to have a chance. And I think Rouen, just got a little bit too much ground to make up.
Righto. Petit-Fours coming next. Okay, we're finally there. Talk us through the rumours, the speculation. What have you been hearing? What is this hook you've had us on edge for the last week for?
It's actually been confirmed. This evening, I went on Instagram just while I was waiting for your Amazon delivery to get delivered to your house, Rich, in that this player has a new club. But the player in question is George Tilsley. He is a former All Blacks Sevens player. He was at Toulouse earlier on in the season as a World Cup joker. So while players were away with the World Cup, he's a winger, and he kind of signed for Agen about 8 years ago. I think 2015 was his first club in France. That was Agen. He'd been at various clubs since, been at Perpignan, and that will start at Perpignan because he had a season at Bordeaux as well. January 2023, playing for Perpignan. Doing my research on George Tilsley, he got sent off for stamping on the arm of Morgan Parra, which is one of the more egregious stamps you'll see. It's just like it's basically next to assistant referee.
I feel like this story is ringing a bell, but please continue.
He didn't actually play for Toulouse when he signed there during the Rugby World Cup because he got placed in police custody on the 10th of August for assaulting his girlfriend and getting a 6-month suspended prison sentence. He got sacked by Toulouse. That's not funny. He got sacked by Toulouse as a result. Good. He then re-signed for Agen in October on a deal till 2025. Homecoming of sorts. This is his last chance, and we're his family. We're going to give him the lifeline he needs. February this year, Agen are at home to Provence, and they absolutely hammered Provence in that game. It was 31-7. The highlights, it looked like Provence were never in. Provence top the league. They were never in the game. And George Tilsley came into the dressing room either at half-time or after the game, intoxicated, and got into a scrap with the team manager. I've heard that there was some justification for him being put out by the the team manager. Arjen have handling contracts have been a bit kind of smoke and mirrors, I think, with some of the players. But unsurprisingly, after attacking the team manager, Arjen cancelled his contract. Now, the rumours, you'd think after the kind of litany of offences there, this guy is a bad
Damaged goods.
Damaged goods. Unfortunately, Richard, I can report that after weeks of rumours and no one really knowing quite what was going on, he has signed for a new club as a medical joker, and it is Saxby.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Oh, that's no good, is it? That is no good.
It's gutting. It's really gutting. It's like you saw, at least with Mohamed Alas, he's on his day, not a test match quality prop, but we've got a guy who has not torn it up. I mean, he got signed for Toulouse, so he's clearly. I feel like any winger that gets signed for Toulouse, you've got to be pretty good. But
yeah, there's a little bit. I mean, the having a dig at the team manager is objectively quite funny. The rest of it is pretty dark, isn't it? It's no good at all. There's a bit of. I mean, we mentioned ours. There's a bit of that. There has been more than a few instances of that in French domestic rugby, which is, a little bit of a stain to put it mildly. I think on some of that. But yeah, that's a shame. Well, we'll have to hope that he maybe gets into an altercation with the snail early doors and has his contract cancelled. Or perhaps gets sparked out by one of the ladies in the what's it called, the token queue.
Dig out the tokens, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be good, and they can go straight to the top of the list again as our pro leader team of choice.
I think you've got to stick through your team rough and smooth, And Saxby have had a tough time anyway, staying up on points, 1 point on points difference last year, I think it was.
Yeah, they did, didn't they? Yeah, it was very tight.
We'll see. The other bit of slightly cheerier, but not that much cheerier, but medical joker news in Pro D2. And we mentioned him just a minute ago, and I didn't mention him as a player playing for Provence because he might not play for them, from what I can tell, or George North has ruptured his Achilles in that game against Italy. So his season is done for Ospreys, and Provence are looking for an injury joker for the start of next season as well. So it's obviously, rupturing an Achilles is not, I imagine, a particularly fun injury. Anthony Watson, I know, was out for a long time, wasn't he, with the ruptured Achilles?
Serious stuff.
So that's not great for Provence. If they do go up, their big money signing, international test great, George North.
Yeah.
And the kind of caliber of player they're looking at, you're looking at kind of Tuim Arbour from Poe. He's a good player, but it's not George North quality. And I imagine that's a fairly sizable contract as well.
There we go. A couple of very small Petit-Fours for me. Slightly more optimistic note. One is that
maybe a Digestif from you, maybe more of a
Digestif,
a Chartreuse or a Genepi,
or a Chartreuse at the end
with my heavy Petit-Fours.
Well, the French women's team beat Ireland in the first game of the Six Nations, 38-17, which happened to be the exact same or the reverse of the same score as it was in Marseille in the men's. And it was more just to call out because you mentioned them earlier. I think there were 2 or 3 players from Blognac Feminin representing the French team. So wicked to see them not completely folded, still flying the flag for a famous old club.
Not impacted by the men's team going bust.
Yeah. And then otherwise, that was pretty much it. I saw apparently Montpellier have added Billy Vunipola to their shopping list. Another, I assume, Alex Dombrandt after that, Ben Morgan, any other English eights?
Nick
Dan
Easter.
Ward-Smith, Nick Easter. They'll all be getting a gig. Forrester, yeah. Apparently long Delalios after a contract. Rogue from them. And a few rumours circulating as well around And I think, was it today he announced his test time, and Danny Kerr, maybe
Danny
a little
Kerr potentially going
swan
to
song in
Bayonne.
the south of France, Bayonne, possibly Perpignan. Although I think, what's his name? Millard. Is it Millard? Is that the Quins?
Quins,
head,
yeah.
head honcho. Seeming to make noises to indicate that. But God, if you're Danny Kerr, you'd fancy a little finish in Perpignan or Montpellier or Bayonne or somewhere, wouldn't you?
Beats Guildford.
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? Right.
There's two things on social media, or dominating our social media today. One is Bayonne are going big on the social media ahead of their game in San Sebastian. And the other, which is, there's some great social media content. San Sebastian, I can see why they're getting behind it. It's epic. The other thing is Mathieu Reynal has retired, which he deserves more than the minute that we're going to give him here. But a genuinely good French ref. I think let's just leave it at that. There's a lot said about French refs in the English media. I genuinely think he's top 3, I'd say, top 5 certainly in the world.
Yeah, he's brilliant. Clearly a proper character as well.
Yeah.
All right, au revoir, Mathieu. You've been great. We've been Rosbifs Rugby. That has been Rob. We're on a real timer countdown now. We'll see you next week.
Au revoir.